Having an exceptional relationship with your spouse affects every single aspect of your life and is crucial for experiencing your dream life together. I'm Rob Murgatroyd.
And I'm Kim Murgatroyd. Listen in on our honest, filter-free conversations as we navigate life and business together without killing each other.
You'll learn by osmosis how to transform the friction you feel in your relationship into a purposeful foundation that will allow you to grow together.
Welcome to the Friday Podcast.
Kimberly Winter White, Murgatroyd, how are you?
I absolutely knew that was going to be my name today when I put this outfit on.
How'd you know?
Because I know you. I've been to this circus for 500 episodes now. Like, I know you. You know what's cool about Italy? Winter White. I don't know why the Italians are so obsessed with this winter creamy white, but it is a full-on head-to-toe outfit experience. It's an experience.
You know what I've learned here about fashion? It's really interesting to me.
Anything goes?
Yeah. Not only does anything go, in the U.S., we're very careful about making sure, well, that doesn't match. I mean, you want to make sure that, this color goes with this color. Here, there's almost an intentional mismatching of things that you have been taught, or at least I have in the U.S., don't match here, and that they're intentional about mismatching, or at least that's my perception.
Yeah, there's no garanimals going on.
No, there's no graminals. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about the bandwidth of life. Why don't you set this one up?
Okay, so last week's episode, we talked about when is enough in relation to money. Like everybody's constantly needing to 3x, go bigger, blah, blah, blah. And in that conversation, by the way, if you haven't listened to the episode, it was pretty awesome. Go back and listen. But in that conversation, Rob dropped this verbal bomb. I don't know a better way to say it, that we've been talking about since we recorded the episode. And he made the realization during that episode that enough is enough in growth. Like when you're trying to really grow in 3X and grow in 3X and all of that kind of stuff, when your growth erodes your bandwidth for fulfillment, that's when we say enough is enough and we maintain. And what that means is when, like yesterday, okay, this is a perfect example. You and I both had a similar day yesterday. We planned to meet a friend for coffee. I had my friend I was meeting. He had his friend he was meeting. It's a coffee meeting. It's an hour. It's like, hey, how are you? And we move on with our day. I had a plan of working on our Italy event that's going to be coming up in the fall. Rob, I'm sure you had a plan to write for your book, and neither of those things happened. And what happened instead, we allowed that coffee meeting to take us away. For me, it started at like 8:30 in the morning. I didn't get home till 2:30 after lunch. And I spent the entire day walking around Florence, exploring new shops with one of my newer friends in the city. And it was so great. Like we laughed, we connected. It was such a incredible day, honestly. And I think you probably feel the same way. And if I was like constantly this like, oh my God, I got to drive it. I'm so sorry. I can't spend any more time with you because I gotta grind it out and get back to work. Like that would be horrible. Did I say that correctly?
You did a really good job, but I want to give a slightly different perspective because during my day yesterday, I actually had a conversation with the person I had lunch with about this subject, and the way I explained it to him, he didn't quite get it, and he said something interesting. He said, a lot of people I know really, really love what they do, and they don't see it as work. I said, no. That's not what I'm saying. You're not getting what I'm saying. He's like, well, what are you saying? So let me, just in case you fall into that category, this one, if you embrace it, it's part of our spring collection here, and it's really, really been super impactful for us. So think about it this way. Let's just say that you have certain buckets in your life. Your family, your friends, your health, hobbies, fun, charity, things like that. Things that really make a difference for you in terms of if you are putting your all into those areas, you have a happy, fulfilled life, right? Those are the areas. Like when I do these things, when I connect with my wife, like we're about to go on date day today, these are really, really important to us. Okay. So now you have those buckets and you said, this is what a fulfilled life looks like. Great. Now, Mr. 3X business lunch comes along and a guy says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this project and I think you'd be great to do it with me. And your plate's pretty full when it comes to business, pretty full when it comes to all these areas of life that I'm discussing. You have to make a decision. Do I want to erode those areas or do I want to go all in on this next business with the person? You have to decide that. And so we went back and forth because he still wasn't getting it. He said, but what if you really love those areas? And what if you look and say, that's what makes me tick? That's what makes me come alive. I love buying and selling businesses. I love real estate. I love whatever, right? I said, that's still not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're looking at those areas of your life and you're saying, I have already invested the amount of time I want to in my wife or in my husband or, whatever the case may be. I'm already spending the meaningful amount of time with my children. I'm already spending the meaningful amount of time with my friends and hobbies. If all of those buckets that you are truly honest with yourself and you are fulfilled in those areas and you still have the bandwidth and you love it, then I say go all in on business. But if you want to go all in on business just because you love it, be honest with yourself and know that you are ignoring other areas that you probably should be spending time in.
So let's say Rob is offered a business opportunity, right? And his plate's already pretty full. He has coaching, he has events, he has the podcast, he has social media, he has all of these things he has to do every day. But let's say a business opportunity comes along and it's going to require maybe 10 more hours a week of work. But we have a standing Friday date where we have a day date. We wake up, we do this podcast, and then we go and maybe we go around a museum, then we have lunch, and it's a leisurely 4 or 5 hours together that we get to explore and connect. If he looked in his schedule and that was the only time that he could focus on this new business and he had to cancel day date and he just said, hey, baby, I really want to grow and do this opportunity, but I'm going to need those hours from day date. So we can't do that anymore. That would erode our relationship.
There we go. We got
it. So you have to make a decision. Am I willing to erode either my other business? So you could do that too. You could, if a new opportunity comes along, you could say, okay, well, maybe this business over here that isn't really working out and I'm not loving, I could stop doing that and replace it. That's an option. Or you'd have to erode the business you already have. But we all know if you have a successful business, you would never, ever, ever erode it with a new business. But you would erode the time with your kids or your wife or your health. How many CEOs do you know that skip the gym, skip exercise, eat like shit because they don't have quote unquote time? So you will erode some other area of your life in order for that financial gain. So we talked about this in the Enough is Enough.
Let me just say one thing, because I know where you want to go next, but before we get off this subject, I just want to say one piece about it. I think many of you listening are probably already doing a version of this in your life right now. For example, you may have a date night, and it may be non-negotiable for you. Like we have our friends Chris and Lori. I'm about to do a podcast with him, and we're going back and forth. I'm literally 10 hours in time change difference, and he's doing the podcast. We're going to do the podcast together, but I have to do it around their non-negotiable morning walk. And I've been friends with him 15 years. I've been playing this game with him for 15 years because we're always in a different time zone. It's non-negotiable for him. So these are areas. And for you, maybe it's a Sunday. Maybe it's like, I'm not meeting with you on Sunday. We're not going to do it. Like that's so think about all these areas of your life. You may be more willing to erode areas if it falls within the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday than you would, let's say, on a Saturday or Sunday or a date night.
Okay. So keep that in your brain, right? So we had this conversation on last week when we talked about the podcast, had this realization that for us, enough is enough when it begins to erode the fulfillment, the buckets that lead to health, fulfillment, connection, and those things. So then I come to Rob and I say, all right, so we need to, if that's our lens, we need to look at our spending, at our savings, because, you know, it's a new year. So we're doing new financial goals and all of that. And we need to look, if we don't want to add more opportunities, more businesses, more things to our plate, we can always, you know, obviously you want to grow everything, but if we don't want to add more time to our work week, then let's also just go through our finances and make a new financial blueprint, I think, for 2023. And so we had this really great conversation about this subject. I'm going to give you the first example, and then I'll go into, I have 4 things that we did that I think could help you. And if you find yourself in this situation. So what provoked the conversation was, we're going back to the US in the summer for a month. We're doing like a US tour, not for the podcast, just to see friends and family. And when we fly international, our preference is to fly in business class. There's more room. We have the kid, the dog, and all the things. We typically like to use miles, although if miles aren't available, we have paid. Business class is hella expensive. And we're taking the entire summer and traveling the entire summer. So it's not like we're just traveling that one trip and we're saving it all for that one trip. We're doing a month in Greece before. We might be doing, by the way, you don't even know this yet, we might be doing a week in Sweden before that with some friends.
Sweden.
I know. I'll talk to you about it later. But we might be doing that. And so there's other things. There's a lot of summertime and investment financially into this summer. So I said, Rob, there is a possibility we're not going to have the miles, and there's a possibility we're not going to fly international because airfare has been really expensive with the cost of fuel and all of that. And he was like, yeah, well, I'd rather not go. And I was like, you know what? That's a fucked up answer. And so we had to talk that through.
By the way, men, when your wife starts the sentence with, you know what? It never, ever ends well.
It never ends well. And so what I said to him is I said, listen, if we have, we need to have a conversation about this because we just talked about enough is enough. We just talked about bandwidth. It's important for me and you to see our friends and family this summer. And that takes priority over your comfort for 8 hours, to be honest. And you and I had a really honest and good conversation about that. And what we came to the end of is I said, look, what is it going to be, $10,000 or $12,000 for us to fly international to and from the US this summer? Would you rather buy that airfare and have to work harder for it, add an additional coaching client, add an additional anything, right? Because that's your bandwidth. Or would you rather say, if we have the miles, we'll do the miles, and if we don't, we won't. And we'll find some middle ground like premium economy.
Well, look, I thought about this, and there's a great book out now. It's actually been out for a few years. It's called Die with Zero. And this guy is actually the guy who wrote it. I think his last name is Perkins. I can't remember his first name. One of the things he talked about was getting really clear on how much things cost you in terms of your bandwidth and how much things cost you in terms. So he said, like, I get a little crazy about it. Like if I look at like a shirt that I'm wearing and I look and I go, okay, this shirt cost me $100 or whatever it is. There's an amount of time that I had to put into effort, energy, perhaps time away from my family to produce the dollar amount to create that shirt. I mean, that's just a basic example, right? So a more extreme example is what Kim's talking about now, which is like, a $15,000. How much would it be for the three of us?
It's somewhere between 10 to 15,000, just sort of depends.
So let's call it, all right, let's say 15 grand. So you're talking about $15,000. So you're talking about $15,000 for 8 hours. Is it worth it? I mean, don't ask me at 2 in the morning when I'm flying over the Atlantic Ocean, because I'm going to tell you it's worth it. But when you really look at it, one of the things that I'm starting to realize now, because our life is set up in such a way that we're so happy and so fulfilled and we have so many things that we want, why would I want to increase my overhead, which would trigger an increase in my need for production, which would then trigger a conflict of erosion from things that we just discussed about having a fulfilled life? Why would I want to do that? So then it starts for me now, I'm starting to look at lots of different things. I'm starting to say, why would I spend the money? Like let's just say that I could reduce $100,000, right? You have two choices in life. You can either reduce the amount you're spending or you can increase the amount you're making. But what I didn't realize about increasing the amount you're making is that there's a bigger price that you pay for increasing the amount that you're making, which is your time. And the time and the mental bandwidth. You see us doing these podcasts and you see us doing, social media, and you see us traveling and all these different things. What you don't realize is all of the conversations that we need to have around that, which is, what are we talking about today? No, I don't think so. That's not, we already did that one. What are our, and the cost of having a podcast team and all of the things that come around it. So if you say make more money, all of those other things are involved. It's not just literally work harder and make money. There's a price of your time, sweat, blood, and tears that are associated with it. So as I'm thinking about these things, and I'm thinking about, if I reduce, let's just use a simple example. If I reduce the amount of money that I spend on God knows what by $100,000, which for me is probably pretty fucking easy to do, right? If I drop it by $100,000, what I'm also doing is I'm allowing, like, I can almost feel like my chest relax. I'm allowing myself to go, fuck it, let's take Fridays off. Let's go spend the day together, tiptoe through the tulips, and enjoy our life, because I'm not feeling the pressure to try and make up that extra $100,000.
Right, because to do it, it's pay me now or pay me later. You're going to spend the money or you're going to spend the time, right? And so what we did is we had this conversation. By the way, it reminds me of the book we mentioned on our last episode, The Psychology of Money, where he said the best way to raise your savings is not to raise your income, it's to raise your humility.
That's a good one.
And I thought that was really good. So we came up with a game plan, because I do want to travel in business class, but I don't want to do it at the expense of other financial goals. And I don't want to do it at the expense of having to work harder to make that happen, to be really honest.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in living a fulfilled life, because I know you just interviewed a woman on the Next Chapter podcast who lost her husband right before Christmas. And it was like, he was a healthy guy, went out for a run, didn't come back. And those lessons, like when stuff like that happens, people always say, live each day like it's your last. You never know when it's going to happen. But then they go out and fucking grind and forget about fulfillment.
You're going to say that they go out and fuck. It was like, what are you talking about?
I know where your mind is at right now. Okay. So anywho, this is the plan we came up with for our financial blueprint for 2023. So here's what we did. Number one, we used the lessons that we learned from David Bach's book, Latte Factor. Pay yourself first. Rob, myself, Sophia, we all have an IRA or a Roth IRA. We want to make sure all three of those are maxed.
And you got to automate. Did you automate it yet?
And it's automated. Number two, we want to make sure that we hit a savings goal. We set a savings goal and we hit the savings goal outside of the IRA. Number three, Sophia's school, she goes to a private school. I need it paid in full. I don't want to do payment plans. I hate that shit. I want to pay it in full every year. So IRAs, school, paid in full, savings. That is my pay myself first. And until those things are done, we're not doing other things.
By the way, how simple is that? You gave 3 examples, but realize those 3 examples set you up for retirement, put your kid in the school that makes you feel safe, protected, happy, fulfilled.
She gets great education.
And what was the third one? And the extra spending.
They're both savings. And it's savings, like regular savings.
Yeah, but you also had another goal that you didn't mention too.
Well, I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
So the first thing is to pay yourself first. And that's the most important. Set up my kids, set up our life for retirement, and make sure we have the oh shit money when something happens, right?
Yep.
All right, that's the first thing. Second thing is we are going to be gone every summer. It is what it is. We're going to do 60 to 75 days of travel every summer because it is monkey butt sweaty ass in, like, you will have swamp ass in August in Florence if you're here. So by the way, don't book your trip for Florence in August. This is why we're doing our trip in October. No one needs swamp ass. So we're gone 60 to 75 days over the summer. We need a plan financially for that because we're paying the expenses in Italy and we're paying the expenses of travel. So I've set up a summer savings account with a goal for how much we will have in a summer savings account. So I don't have a freaking heart attack come September when I get the statements from the summer. So number one, pay yourself first. Number two, for us, it's a summer savings. For you, it might be something else. It might be a different type of it. Maybe it's a buy your first house fund. Maybe it's a vacation fund. Maybe whatever it is, put that in there because it's important. If it's important to you and you want it to happen, that you need to save for it. We did this when we got our veneers. We created a special savings account. We created a special savings account when we got married. We called it the not wedding account. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Because we weren't engaged yet, but we knew we would get married. And so we felt like it was bad luck to call it a wedding account because we weren't engaged. But we started saving a year in advance of our wedding.
It was very interesting talking to the bankers about why the account is titled as the not wedding.
The not wedding.
Is it like the not, like, the
No,
the
that didn't
magazine?
exist yet.
No.
We're older than that. So we've done that for things we wanted, veneers, all the things, right? So you decide what special savings account it is for you. And by the way, that little nugget is also directly out of David Bach's book, The Latte Factor. So there was so much value for me financially in that book. If you don't have it, read it, and we'll link it in the show notes. So number 3, this was a good one, okay? Because these 3 and 4 kind of go together. So we are people, and by we, I mean Rob, are people that if we want something, we buy it. So if he wants this, it shows up the next day. I am terrified to say something I want because it's almost like he's a freaking genie. Like, I feel like he magically has it arrive in 3 hours. It's wild. He doesn't think things through. Half the time he doesn't look at the cost of anything. And if he wants it, he buys it. Full stop. That's a problem, right? Especially if you're working on these areas. And once you have the acknowledgement of every purchase you make is a purchase not in income, but in bandwidth, you have to start to think these things through. So we both wrote personal goals and business goals for 2023. And we decided, and by we, I mean I decided, that we were going to function under this rule. And the rule is, does this purchase align with my 2023 goals? And if it is not in alignment, and the goals are, we have financial goals, but we also have personal goals and business goals. So if it does not, then that item gets added to a 2023 want list. Okay, I don't know what else to call it. Maybe you can come up with a better name.
No, it's good.
So we share a note in our phones on the notepad, and you can share those. And there's a Rob section and a Kim section. And Rob has things on his, Kim has nothing on hers for right now. But this would be a great place, by the way. We should add, Rob, business airfare to this list. Okay. Here's how it works. I have a goal, and so does Rob, to fluently speak Italian. So us hiring Italian teachers or buying an Italian course is in alignment with our goals. So we say yes and we do it. We have a goal to stay connected, have a romantic, loving relationship. We are fiercely protective of this. So a date day or date night is in alignment with those goals. We need a ring light. We do a lot of videos. We have these studio lights that are just too harsh. They don't create very good skin, shall we say, or lighting. We need a ring light. That is in alignment with our goals because that's in alignment with our business goals. Do you see how this is working? Business class airfare to America, there's a giant X over the financial goals because we haven't paid ourselves first. And nowhere in our goal list is it make sure we can travel in luxury, right? So that does not meet the criteria to get purchased. So that moves to the want list. Does this make sense as I'm saying it? Because you're nodding your head, but I want to make sure it makes sense.
Are you talking to me or the people
no,
listening? I thought you were just giving a lesson. Am I involved in this lesson?
I'm giving a lesson and I'm reiterating just in case there's confusion on your part.
Are you using the listener to teach me something?
Maybe.
Are you wanting me to just hear this?
Yes.
Yes,
Does it make sense?
Yes, I hear you.
Does it make sense?
It makes sense and I hear you.
Okay. So if you want to purchase something, one, we have to run it through, have we paid ourselves first? So let's stay on the business class airfare. So if we hit, let's call it May, and we've fulfilled all our IRAs, we've saved for Sophia's school for the following year, and we've hit our savings goals, and we've filled our summer savings travel bucket, savings thing. All of those things are done and we still have income coming in. Sure, we can buy the first class tickets or whatever. But if those things haven't been met, we're not going to splurge for it because I'd rather put that money into my IRA. I'd rather put that money into my kids' school. I'd rather put that money into a savings for retirement. I don't want to negate the things that really matter for 16 hours of semi-comfort.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense to me. I don't disagree with anything that you've said. The biggest piece for me about that, I think you have to find what is the thing for you that's going to help you to accomplish these goals that you're talking about. And for me, something just clicked for me when I thought about, if we use the example of the airfare of, $15,000, just me saying, I'm going to get there. I'm going to sit and coach. Let's say that was the example. But I got an extra 15 grand. What does that mean? That means I don't have to work an extra $15,000. And me not working an extra $15,000 feels better than me sitting in business class for 8 hours. So I think you have to figure out what works for you. Yeah. And just not having the pressure to produce that extra $15,000, it works for me because if you think about it and go, okay, so $15,000, we're going to go out today and we're going to go have a cornetto, a ham and cheese cornetto now. That's $2, right? And then we're going to go to a museum. That's, another $10. And then we'll have lunch, another $50, $60. So we can have an unbelievable life for $80.
Well, so it goes to our goals too, though.
When you divide that $15,000 by that $80, that gives me a tremendous amount of days
and value
that allow me to have what I just described for that 15 grand. Or I fly back and forth first class and I got to figure out a way to pay for that $15,000. I don't know. For me, that just seems like I don't know, maybe it's a stage of my life. I don't know what it is. But for me, I would just rather not have the increase in production. The other big aha that I had during this is, when people talk about moving two levers, you either got to make more money or you got to spend less. I don't think they're equal. I think they're different.
I think they're different. I think they're different because when they say you got to make more, well, just make more. Just make more. Well, but that's your bandwidth.
There's a price. Pun intended. There's a price there.
There's a price to pay for it. So I hope that this conversation maybe sparks you to take control over finances, to find a way. And by the way, a lot of this stuff, like saving for summer, that's an incredible thing. Like that,
First,
almost 2.5 months.
First world problems.
Like first world problems, right? But whatever you're saving for, like that's part of, you're saving for your retirement, you're saving for summer, you're checking in on your bandwidth, making sure you have enough bandwidth for the things that truly, truly matter in your life. And, you know, I think that's really important. So hopefully this helped you guys. And if you want to join us in Italy, by the way, because I know I've mentioned that a few times in this podcast, it'll be in the show notes. Opt in on our email for our Italy trip. It's in October of this year, 2023.
October 3rd to the 8th in Tuscany. And
that's the working dates. I want to make sure we're not tied to them just in case we haven't exactly planned it out yet. But we're looking at the first week of October and we're really, really excited about it. So get on the email list. We already have almost 150 people on this email list and we're sending the details and the sign up to that list first. We're not going to publicly share about it until that list has made a decision. They will also get an early bird special on the pricing for that trip. And it's going to be phenomenal. So if you want that, jump in on it.
That's it, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Have you ever made a vision board by cutting out pictures of the beach house you wanted, the Ferrari, maybe even put your head on top of the dream body that you cut out, and then maybe you cut out some words like abundance that looks like Jeffrey Dahmer wrote it from prison?
And then you hung it in your bathroom or maybe your closet, only to find it a few months later covered in dust behind the dresser. Yeah, that doesn't work because you're missing the most important part, the vision.
So over the last 5 years, we've created and manifested multiple visions and have gone from working 12-hour days in our physical business that no longer excited us to living the life of our dreams every day.
Using our simple exercises and effective manifestation processes, we've sold our business that was no longer inspiring, created 5 new streams of income that we love, and moved our family to live the life of our dreams in Florence, Italy.
The Ultimate Vision Board course for couples will get you and your partner on the same page with undeniable clarity in your vision together and help you manifest your dream life. Check out the link in the description to learn more.